Alright, so what we're going to be doing today is winterizing the house. When we got here we found out it was already winterized, so the first thing we want to do is basically see if they did it correctly, see if there's any damage to the plumbing. Right off the bat we can see in the kitchen here that there was an attempt to put a plug on top of this. Obviously that's not going to be airtight, so we put a compressor on there. It's not going to hold any pressure, it's going to pop right off. So that's going to basically stop us from using the compressor unless we can find a shutoff valve that comes with the kitchen. We're going to also, as we walk through the house, keep looking for any damage to the plumbing that we can report back to our client. Any breaks in the line. As you can see, some of the drywall has been removed here behind the bathtub. And just a simple quick look at it, there's no apparent cracking that we can see. But any cracking we would need to report back, possibly submit a bid to repair that before we could winterize it. Alright, so as we look here at the main bathroom, it does look like the last people that winterized it did put a little bit of antifreeze here in the bowl. It looks like there is a little bit of freezing in the antifreeze, so they probably went a little light on it. If you look here in the back of the toilet, it's actually completely frozen. No antifreeze was put in there whatsoever. The top of the toilet tank is actually stuck in there. So what we're going to try to do is add some antifreeze, see if we can at least break that up a little bit so it doesn't totally crack the toilet and flood in the spring. It doesn't appear that there's any freeze damage to that faucet. There may be a little bit here to the bathtub, but we really can't tell at this point. Alright, we're also going to check the hot water heater to see if we can see any damage on that. Sometimes you can tell if there's still water in it. If it's loose, you can hear it slushing around. But just taking a little peek at it here, you can see that there is some damage to the bottom. It looks like where the spigot came out here at the bottom, it's possibly popped off due to freeze damage, or possibly even been torqued off by somebody trying to open it up, not realizing it was frozen. Then we have another telltale sign that it wasn't done correctly here. Generally what will happen is people will grab a bucket from the house or something like that if they don't have a compressor and a hose running out of the end, which is the correct way to do it. And they'll simply let the gravity drain it into a bucket like this, throw out one bucket at a time. The problem with that is it doesn't force the water out of the bottom. If there is a buildup of sediment at the bottom of the tank, gravity isn't going to blow all of that out. So this is a telltale sign that it's probably not been winterized correctly, and that can lead to a lot of damage down the road. Another thing that you want to do, even if it's frozen, if the house is totally frozen, even if the power's off when you winterize it, this is a gas heated hot water heater. And what you're going to want to do is turn this to vacation setting. It appears it's already has been turned to vacation setting, and then you want to turn this little knob, you just push it down, turn it over to where it says off. That way, if it's empty or it's frozen, when the power gets turned back on, it won't start heating this. If you do start heating it without any liquid inside, it can burn the coils up and ruin the hot water heater. And you and your preservation company definitely don't want to pay to have a new hot water heater put back in one of these houses. All right, this is the second toilet in the house, I guess, the second bathroom. Possibly in the works here. You can also see that there really has been very little attempt at winterizing this. Looks like possibly they put in some antifreeze into this, possibly drained out, or they flushed it out. Possibly what they were trying to do is fill the back of it with antifreeze and then flush it in there. Although it doesn't look like there's a lot of antifreeze in there either. Looks like this is pretty solid. So the toilet's probably going to be ruined. What we can do again is try to dump a little bit more antifreeze in there. And just get it back into a liquid state so it doesn't expand any further. Also in a basement like this, you also want to look for, before you hook your compressor, if you want to look for any broken water lines or uncapped water lines. If there are any uncapped water lines, obviously when you hook your compressor up, just going to blow air through the system. It's not going to do you any good. We can see here down at the base of the toilet that there's an uncapped water line here. Does look like there's a little bit of ice in the bottom of there. Ice can cause these to pop off. If you listen to that, there is ice in this line as well. And over to the left of the toilet, you're actually going to see somebody plumbed in off of the laundry lines a shower here. This is an obvious code violation. You can't have a shower 3 inches away from the panel. Which brings me to my next point here. You're also going to want to switch off the breaker for the hot water heater, just as a precaution. As we continue to go down the wall here, we just continue to look for any water lines that are broken by freeze damage or uncapped. So you can follow those lines up on the ceiling, see if any of them are broken. Does look like we might have some minor breaks here coming out where this, you can tell a little bit of ice on there. Other than that, I don't see too many other ones. I see one right here that's clipped. Could have possibly been clipped by the previous owners, or somebody could have clipped it out and taken it. But as we continue to look around, just try to find any other breaks, note them in your property report back to your asset manager or agent, and you can possibly submit a bid to repair those as well. All right, so here's where our main water line comes into the house from the street. This house isn't a metropolitan area, so it is on city water, no well or anything like that. And here's the water meter. Looks like the previous preservation company did take the water meter off. And that's basically where you want to start. Before you take the water meter off, the first thing you're going to want to do is shut off the city side of the water. Make sure that that valve comes completely closed. And then you're going to want to shut off the home side. Clear that completely off. And then what I like to usually do is I just have a large pair of channel locks. And basically on the water meter, all you have to do is turn it just enough to where it breaks the seal. And once you have a little play in it, what I like to do is basically rock this back and forth, and it'll let a little bit of water out, because there's going to be a little bit of water in the meter and just a little bit of water in the line here. And what we want to do is get that to drain out, but we always want to make sure that when we're doing that, you can kind of feel the pressure on your hands. If there's a lot of pressure, generally what that means is the city side of water valve isn't shutting all the way. And with a lot of older valves, like this one, they don't always shut all the way. They might shut 3/4 of the way or halfway. If it isn't shutting all the way, there's really nothing you can do about it. You can shut this off, try to find another place to put in your compressor to blow the rest of the system out. But generally, if this isn't shutting all the way, there's not a lot you can do. There's no real way to repair this without getting your local utility or the city to shut off the water at the street, and that's really going to be at the asset manager or the agent's discretion. But basically, if we do get it shut, want to shut this off, get the water meter out. And one of the most important things you want to do is you want to drain the water meter. And basically, there's a couple different chambers in here. You just want to rock it back and forth like this, get all the water out of it. If any water is left in it, on these particular models, there's a rubber valve on the bottom. If there's water in there and it expands, you can break the valve, break the bottom plate like this, and then you may have to go purchase a new valve or have it repaired by your utility company. And that can cost anywhere from $200 to $300 because it's a proprietary part in most cities. So we want to make sure that we get that fully drained out. And a lot of times what I like to do when I get it off is I'll just zip tie it up against the line. Up against a line like this or a line like that, just to make sure that if there's anything left over, it will flow out without cracking it. Once we get that done, what you want to do is grab a bucket. This is just a bucket that is sitting here. Usually I have a paint bucket or something like that. And what you want to do is go up to the very highest toilet or the very highest area of the house, and just open one faucet, and then come back down here, open this up, and all the water from inside of this line will run out here. And that way you can get all the water out you can. You want to get all the water out you can before you put your air line in there, just to kind of help it along, make sure it doesn't create more of a mess than it's already going to. So basically, this is where you're the best place to get a good seal for your compression line. Generally, when you take it off, there should be a rubber washer in there, and if you can get your compressor line in there, snug it up tight against the rubber washer, and then control how much pressure is going in just using this valve, that's a great way to do it. All right, so now we're ready to add antifreeze into the toilets and into the traps. Like like we discovered before, there's some frozen water in the toilets, probably some frozen water in the traps too. But what we use here is pink antifreeze. You can be picked up at any Lowe's or Home Depot. It's pink kind, non-toxic, good down to -50. Basically, you just want to pour that into every P-trap of every sink, just like that, just to get enough. All that coming up there shows me that there's either a partial clog, possibly ice or something else. And then we're just going to try to dilute down any ice that's in here right now. And it's not going to reverse any damage, but hopefully what it will do is just prevent the toilet from cracking if anything else gets in there. Mostly what we want to do is show that we put forth a good effort into winterizing this for our client, and to note any damage that was done previous to us showing up. And then also in any showers where there's a trap, you want to add that in. And generally you don't have to use that much, but I have a suspicion that there's probably some ice in there that we want to dilute down. After we add in the antifreeze, you're going to want to secure the toilet some way. Depending on the asset manager, whoever you're working for, it's going to be work order specific how they want you to do it. This client actually has us tape the top of the toilet seat down with a warning sticker that says the toilet is not to be used, it's been winterized. Other companies are going to want you to put like a plastic gasket over it or anything like that, but this usually works the best, just to make sure no one else uses it. And also in the downstairs toilet, we're going to try to do the same thing, just dilute down dilute the ice down with antifreeze, see if we can get it to break up so it doesn't crack the bottom of the toilet if it hasn't already. And then also in the back. It only looks like in the back here we have ice, just in this holding chamber here. So hopefully no porcelain is cracked. You want to make sure you get down all the lines. And then we also want to add any floor drains to make sure those don't crack. This basement is below grade, so it's pretty unlikely that this would crack. And then these are the only two toilets that we have in the house. The only sink was in the bathroom. The kitchen sink is MIA. Alright, and as we're finishing up and posting our warnings on the toilets, front door, making sure no one uses any of the plumbing, another one that we want to make sure to include is to put a warning on the hot water heater, just saying do not use without refilling the tank. You want to make sure that the tank is refilled before the heating element's on. If the heating element gets turned on, the tank isn't full, it can potentially burn up the coils in the hot water heater. And we don't want to do that. So we want to tell anyone who might, de-winterize the house, possibly an inspector, if the house is under contract, to make sure that they know the tank's empty and to refill it before they turn any of the coils back. Just in closing, kind of just a overcap of what we went through here. We got a work order to winterize this house. When we got here, we noticed it had already been winterized by another company. Even if it has already been winterized, now that you have a work order to do that, the liability has been shifted from that company to your company. So you're going to want to go through the appropriate steps that we went over today, just to make sure that you document any damage that's occurred to the property, any freeze damage, and just note everything to the company, submit the appropriate bids, and stay tuned. Hopefully we'll get a house that isn't frozen, that we can show you the full steps of winterizing a property.